Well, hello again. Welcome again to another episode of Down to Earth but Heavenly Minded. And I'm your host, Rish. And today I'm going to talk to you about the great jailbreak. Everybody likes stories, at least I do. And I kind of like to tell stories too. And there's a lot that happened in my life, and I could share, and I have. But today I'm going to share a story about somebody else. In fact, a couple guys, a fellow by the name of Paul and a fellow by the name of Silas, and they were thrown in jail. But something happened, and so let me just share part of the story from you. I'll read a little bit here, and I'm in Acts chapter 16. Let me just switch this here, though. I'll turn the welcome text off. This is just a site where supposedly where the jail in Philippi was, where Paul and Silas were put in jail. These are the ruins. There was a lot more to this site, but a lot of it is just rubble now, so it doesn't really give you the whole picture, but you got an idea what the jail kind of looked like. Anyway, I'll leave that on the screen, and I'm going to get the story up here. Now, just to lead up to the story was the fact that Silas and Paul were in this town of Philippi, and there was a young girl who was demon possessed, and she could tell the future somewhat, and so these guys were using her to make money, and uh, Paul cast this demon out, and they lost their income. So they dragged them before the magistrate. And this is where I'm going to start my story. And they had brought them to the magistrate. They said, "These men are Jews, and they are disturbing our city. They advocate customs that are not lawful for us as Romans to accept or practice." And the crowd joined in attacking them, and the magistrate tore the garments off them and gave orders to beat them with a rod. And when they had inflicted many blows upon them, they threw them in prison and ordered the jailer to keep them safely. And having received this order, he put them into the inner prison and fastened their feet in stocks. So now we hear that's kind of the layout of the story. And so Paul and Silas are in this prison. And it's not a prison like we would think of. Get all your meals fed to you, and you're taken care of. This was very uncomfortable. But anyway, it was about midnight when Paul and Silas, they were praying, believe it or not, and singing hymns to God. Can you imagine that? Being in this condition just after being beaten? And yet they were praying and singing hymns. And the prisoners were listening to them. So there were other prisoners there. And suddenly there was a great earthquake. Wow. Now, after this earthquake, the foundations being shaken, uh, and immediately the doors were open and everyone's bonds fell off. Well, they could have just got up and run. This would have been the great jailbreak. But when the jailer woke and saw that the prison doors were open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself, supposing that the prisoners had escaped. Now, why would he do that? Well, for the simple fact, when you were a guard in a prison, if anybody escaped, you were put to death. Your job was that serious. You made sure nobody got out. But then, what did Paul do? It says, "But Paul cried with a loud voice, 'Do not harm yourself, for we are all here.' And the jailer called for a light and rushed in. he got a torch and ran in, and trembling with fear, he fell down before Paul and Silas. Now he was the prisoner, and Paul and Silas were free. Well, you know, he was so glad that they did not escape. This saved his life. And they brought them out and said, "Sir, what must I do to be saved?" The first thing as he thought about was his own hide, his own salvation. And, if he would have killed himself, he would have been in the torments of hell. But he was truly saved, not only from dying at that very moment, but from the second death. And they said, simply, just believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you will be saved. You and your household. Wow. See, Paul was a prophet also. He understood the future. It wasn't only just that this jailer was going to be saved, but his whole household, his family. And they spoke the words of the Lord to him and all who were in his house. And he took them that same hour of the night and washed their wounds. And he was baptized, okay, at once, he and his family. Now they're already saved. It wasn't their baptism that saved them, but the baptism is an outward show of what had happened inwardly. And that's all baptism is. Think of it as a ring when you get married. The ring doesn't make you married. It's just an outward show that you belong to somebody. And that the thing that makes you married is the vows. I do, I will, that's what makes you married, your commitment. So that ring only shows that you belong to somebody, and that's what baptism is. Then he brought them out and brought them up into the house and set food before them. So not only that, they washed their wounds, now they fed them. And he rejoiced along with his entire household that he had believed in God. Well, the question is, have you believed in God? Like this Philippian jailer? But the story doesn't end there. It goes on. It says, but when it was day, the magistrate sent the police, saying, let these men go. So the magistrate only held them for one day and was going to let them go. And the jailer reported these words to Paul, saying, the magistrate has sent to let you go. So, Paul and them could have just left. But Paul was pretty smart. He said, therefore, come out now and go in peace. But Paul said to them, they have beaten us publicly, uncondemned men who are Roman citizens. Boy, this was against the law. Now that magistrate was in big, big trouble. And he says, and have thrown us into prison. And do they now throw us out secretly? No, let them come themselves and take us out. Now the police reported those words to the magistrate, and they were afraid when they heard that they were Roman citizens. They knew they were in big trouble. So when they came out and apologized to them, and they took them out and asked them to leave the city. Just get out of here. We don't want any more trouble. So they went out of the prison, and they went over and they visited Lydia. That was an acquaintance that they had. It was a sister in the Lord. And when they had seen the brothers, all those that were that belonged to the Lord, see, we're all sisters and brothers in the Lord. And all these sisters and brothers, they encouraged them, and then they departed. So it wasn't that they just up and left. They went and they talked to their friends, and then they left. But this incident really shows you how to be saved. So are you like the Philippian jailer? Have you come to your end? Don't take your life. Just think about this story. It's an important story in the Bible, and it's a true story. And we have the ruins of this jail to remember. Now they just suppose this to be the site, but there's a lot of proofs that this could be the site. I'm not an archaeologist, but I think if you talk to an archaeologist, you're going to find out all these places existed. They just haven't found all of them yet, but they found this one, and they suppose this to be and this was in the ruins of Philippi. They supposed this to be the jail, so it was something like this. Of course, in ruins, we don't get the whole picture, but we do know that these things did exist. Now, these aren't fairy tales that I'm telling you. These are true stories. So there's a way to be saved. Just like the Philippian jailer. Have you said, Sirs, what must I do to be saved? Well, I'll tell you like Paul and Silas told this jailer, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and thou wilt be saved. You truly will be saved. And that's my story for you today. So bye for now.